Let's make it our business. A climate podcast that's about innovators, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are taking actions, creating solutions, and inspiring many. This podcast is supported by US Department of State, created by BBC Media Action, India.
We live in a time of fast fashion, where buying is easy, cheap, and let's admit it, tempting. It's a cycle that spins faster and faster. New clothes, discarded clothes, landfills overflowing, and emissions rising. And all the while, that little button keeps holding on, asking us, what happened? In a world where overconsumption is the norm, maybe the answer lies not in owning more, but in sharing better. Hello, I'm Sayema and welcome to Cool It Down, where we dive into innovative ideas and inspiring solutions to tackle climate change. Today's episode focuses on an emerging concept that's reshaping the way we think about waste, the shared economy. And who better to help us unravel this than Shekar from Hasiru Dala Innovations. We'll explore how waste, especially textiles, can transform into thriving opportunities. Welcome to the podcast, Shekar.
Thank you, Sayema. Lovely to meet you and be on the podcast.
Shekar, can you tell us a little about Hasiru Dala Innovations and the work you do in the recycling and shared economy space?
Yes. So I'm Shekar Prabhakar, co-founder and CEO of Hasiru Dala Innovations.
Yeah.
If you're wondering about the tongue twister of a name, it in Kannada means the green force, a name chosen by waste pickers, the community that we work with.
Wow.
And our basic ethos is what we call inclusive circularity, which is the planned and deliberate inclusion of waste pickers and informal waste sector as an integral part of the evolving circular economy.
Okay.
And we manage all kinds of municipal solid waste, including organic wet waste, inorganic dry waste like paper, plastic, and so on,
right,
as well as what we call rejects, which goes to the landfill typically. We also aggregate plastic waste and work with brands like H&M and Unilever so that they use recycled plastic in their products or packaging from waste that is exclusively sourced from us. We happen to be the world's only fair trade guaranteed by World Fair Trade Organization, multi-stream waste management company in the world.
That's awesome.
To have this guarantee. And so that's what we do. And now we are looking at textile waste as an additional stream for waste pickers because they have typically dealt with only things like paper, plastic, metal, and so on, which is municipal solid waste.
Right.
Though textiles does come in that stream, but usually gets landfilled or incinerated.
Shekar, I'm really curious because you said that the name Hasiru Dala Innovations, this has been chosen by the waste workers. I'm curious to know, how did you guys get about choosing this name? Was there like a meeting with the waste workers? How did it come up?
Yeah, so as I said, we work with the community of waste pickers. So when we decided to set it up as an organization and as a movement of on the ground, we asked waste pickers what should the name of the organization be, and they came up with Hasiru Dala, and it's what it is actually. It's what we do. We always co-create what we do with waste pickers.
Right.
So it was important for us. As a marketing guy, I said, "Oh my God, this is a mouthful. Should we go with it?" But then it has held us in good stead. Maybe because it's difficult to pronounce.
It's a head turner, and I would always be curious about the name. So I think it's done the purpose, even as far as marketing is concerned. Shekar, with so many textiles ending up in landfills, do you think there are still unexplored business opportunities in recycling them? I'm asking this particular question because entrepreneurs are tuned in and they want to explore opportunities in this field.
Yeah. So, one of the things that is, like everyone knows, fast fashion has become a little notorious in terms of the waste that they might be generating because of the frequency with which they change fashion. People buy it cheap and wear it a couple of times and then just leave it. So there is a movement both from consumers as well as the producers, whether it's brands like H&M or others, Zara and so on, to how to get back unused textiles or textiles which have end of life back as a garment, right? I mean, that's the holy grail of circularity in the textile business.
Right.
How do you get back something as another garment? So today's technologies, which, for example, mechanical recycling, demands that a garment, a post-consumer waste garment, right, has to have a dominant yarn. For example, cotton, polyester, or nylon. So it should be 80% or above for it to be recycled into yarn.
Yeah.
Right. Which will allow it to go back into another garment. But what has happened over the past many years is that for multiple reasons, for example, athletic leisure wear or have multiple yarn compositions, right? To increase breathability, to be sweat-free, and so on and so forth, right? So that is a challenge, right? And it becomes an end-of-life garment unless it is resold in the pre-loved or second-hand garment market, which there is such markets, a thriving market. But typically, what has happened for reusable garments or resaleable garments, as we call it sometimes, is that it tends to go to a socioeconomic category which is lower than the person who used it, right?
Okay.
Right, because as the middle class, upper middle class, and the rich have not tended to go and buy a pre-loved garment.
Right.
But that is changing. Right now, there are people who are saying, anyway, we're going to, wear a garment maybe a couple of times. So why don't we go and go to a thrift shop or a pre-loved boutique and buy something from there, right? Because also what you need to realize is something. Let's say a designer garment, or which makes sense in a party for someone like you or me. If it goes to your domestic health, it is not appropriate for her to wear that in her milieu, in her neighborhood, in her thing, right? So if you actually hand it to your domestic health, most probably it'll get thrown.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to say no. She or he doesn't want to say no for taking it. But most probably it's not going to be used because it's not what they use. Right. So and the second thing is the multi-yarn, multicolored, printed, embroidered clothes. I'm right now talking mostly about post-consumption textile waste, right? Cannot be recycled, right? They can only be repurposed into something.
That's right.
And today, when we collect, say, from an apartment complex clothes, about 15% is resaleable, about 5 to 10% is repairable and then resaleable, and about 15% is like rejects. It's too contaminated, too torn, frayed, and so on. And those have to go to the landfill or an incinerator, like a cement plant, right? But there is a large 50%, which is this multi-yarn, multicolored, printed, and so on, which has to be repurposed into something. And that is where I think the opportunity lies.
Yeah.
Till we are able to have technologies like chemical recycling technologies, which actually break down these yarns into their very fundamental, like polyester into monomers,
Right.
or or cotton into cellulose.
So that's
and
a
so
huge
on.
opportunity out there, because I mean, we need to, in order to get back to the ultimate aim, we need many hands which will be able to, break down the garment into the different fibers that you're talking about. And definitely, I think, that's one area which should be lapped up. But Shikar, I want to come back to, the waste pickers. And I really want to ask you this, that waste pickers are often the invisible backbone of recycling in many parts of the world. And organizations like, Hasiru Dala Innovations are bringing their stories to the forefront. How are you involving waste picker communities in the textile recycling journey beyond the most obvious role that they have? Do you think that, they can be the voices in leadership and even decision making, so to say?
Absolutely. So, for example, we've set up Indumati, erstwhile waste picker, now an entrepreneur who has been dealing with the municipal solid waste.
Mm-hmm.
We have helped her set up a textile recovery facility,
Okay.
and are running campaigns for cleaning up people's closets. Right.
Right.
Interestingly, I did that exercise about 6 months ago,
Oh,
and 2 cupboards came down to literally 1 shelf of clothing,
wow.
because all the ones that I took out were clothes that I hadn't used for more than a year.
Mm.
And I said, why is it just sitting in my wardrobe? Right?
Yeah.
It can have a second life, either as a reusable, resaleable garment, or get into recycling, right?
Right.
So, for example, a frayed collar, right? I mean, can't resell it, but it can definitely be gone back into cotton yarn. So what we have done is we've set up Indumati with a textile recovery facility,
Mm-hmm.
where clothes come in, and then the waste pickers that she hires sort them. Right.
Okay.
So first level of sorting is, can this be resold? Is it good enough to be resold? The second is, can be repaired. I mean, the hem has come off, or the pocket or the button is missing, and so on. So it can be repaired, and then goes with the first category, which is resaleable.
Right.
Right. Then they start doing it by solid colors, right? All the shades of red, all the shades of orange, and so on. And you can actually do it up to theoretically up to nearly 260 shades, right? So they do that because recyclers want solid colors, because that's easier to turn into yarn. Right? The recyclers then do a composition-based segregation, right? But now we are looking at handheld technologies which can tell the waste picker whether it's a cotton dominant one or a polyester dominant one. So we're actually piloting that from this week.
Wow.
So basically, the value add of the waste picker or Indumati and her workers at the textile recovery facility is segregated in a way which a recycler is able to accept, because the recycler wants it in as homogeneous a fashion as possible, right? All cotton, all white, all red, and so on, right? So that is the value add that she and her workers
And
do.
it's so heartening to hear that, the entire concept is of shared ideas, shared innovations, shared decisions. And I think, that's a very, very healthy world that we are actually building. The cause might be climate sustainability and recycling, but it's a great culture that, you guys are following there. So that's amazing. I cannot help but ask you about this one innovation that I read about, where the recent study and discovery suggests that the textile industry uses a lot of plastics, and we need to reduce plastic dependency. But could you tell us about your work with PET bottle caps to make buttons? I believe you did that.
Yeah. So PET bottle, I mean, not the caps, but the PET bottles, which is of the polymer PET, right? Like your Bisleri bottle, Coca-Cola bottles, and so on.
Yeah.
And so we take everything. So even there, when we buy from the market or our entrepreneurs like Indumati and others, we have to segregate it into a finer category, right? Clear bottles, tinted bottles, opaque pharma bottles, liquor bottles with metal caps, contaminated ketchup, pickle bottles, and so on, right? And then we get the transparent PET bottles flaked and washed, right? And these flakes go to what we call a PET resin maker, right? So he actually recycles those flakes into resin, which goes to the button manufacturer, and he manufactures buttons with 60% of this recycled resin and 40% of virgin PET.
All right.
Right? So instead of using 100% virgin, which comes from fossil fuel, you have reduced it to 40%, right? And 60% is recycled. And so these buttons, H&M did that with us, and they call it social buttons internally because of our fair trade guarantee and the work that we do with waste pickers. And for the last 7 seasons, all garments manufactured by H&M in India, which have buttons and sold globally, of course, have these buttons made from plastic waste exclusively sourced from us.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, and it's millions of buttons, but in terms of actual weight, it's very little because buttons hardly weigh anything.
Exactly.
But millions of buttons in the last 7 seasons.
Lovely.
We started with 30% recycled plastic, and now it's gone up to 60%.
Superb. Shekar, one last question for anybody and everybody who is listening to us. What is that one small step that I can take to be part of the shared economy and support sustainable practices?
Yeah. So I think simple thing, just go look at your wardrobe this weekend, right? And have a simple heuristic. If I haven't worn this for more than a year, it needs to go. Right?
But what if I am just discarding because I want to buy a new one?
Well, then you should ask yourself, are you being sustainable?
Right.
And if you want to buy a new one, come to Indumati's textile recovery facility and buy a pre-loved one.
That's fabulous.
Right? And have someone like us pick up your clothes. And the only condition we put is that it should be washed, dried, and folded. Right? And no torn clothes, no undergarments, and so on.
Right.
Otherwise, we will take everything. And we will assure you that at least 80% of the clothes that we have taken from you is either recycled or repurposed and taken back into the economy.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful note to end this episode. Thank you so much, Shekar. I know that we have a long, long way to go, but I think if we are determined and we value every step, I think it's going to really matter a lot, and we will eventually be able to cool it down. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on Cool It Down.
All right, before we hear a lot more exciting stuff.
Dear listeners, you have a role to play in cooling it down. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about this podcast with just a mail away. Cool it down at in.bbcmediaaction.org or simply click the link in the descriptor of this episode. After all, we got to hashtag cool it down.
And now joining us are two very special guests, Sana Khan and Alfiya Khan from Bombay Closet Cleanse, a platform that reimagines how we approach fashion and sustainability through sharing and secondhand. We'll be talking about how sharing clothes isn't just about saving money or finding something unique. It's also a powerful way to cut down on waste and help the planet. Let's get started. Thank you so much, Sana and Alfiya, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you. We're so excited.
All right, so my first question is for Sana. What inspired you to start Bombay Closet Cleanse? Was there a special moment that made you think, yes, I need to do this?
It all, I think, started with me being an avid shopper, a shopaholic, and I had lots of clothes in my closet to the point where I started creeping into my husband's closet as well. Like there were just that many clothes. And it's like, I think it reached a point.
So one of those who would not repeat the clothes, huh?
I wouldn't. I did not believe in repeating clothes, and I was there at all of the sales, buying things that I didn't need. So I was a serial shopaholic. And I think it started off with just me getting really sick of all the excess, and I had perfectly usable clothes. So I didn't want to kind of just give them away. So I decided to do a little garage sale. There were a few other friends who had some really cool stuff that we thought we could sell. So it was a charity sale that we did, and we raised some funds for the Salvation Army Girls School.
Okay.
So we basically ended up getting a great response. The first garage sale was at my house, and it ended up doing really well.
Wow.
And some really interesting people came over, and a lot of sustainable shoppers. I think that's where like conversation started. It sparked a lot of conversations, and then like I kind of started reading up a little bit more about fast fashion and its impact on the environment.
Right.
So yeah, that's how it kind of very organically started.
So you are confessing that it all began because you're sick and tired of not finding, your favorite piece in that mountain and heaps of clothes that were there in your wardrobe, huh? All right, that's very, very interesting. But when you met people who came from, backgrounds where they were really focused about sustainability, did it hit you? Did climate change actually become a big issue for you? Many businesses are stepping up for it. Did your concern for the environment play a big role in starting Bombay Closet Cleanse?
So I would say that it started off as a personal problem. I had too many clothes. I didn't have enough space in my closet. And so I just wanted to, get rid of them and make some money. It started off like that for sure. But because we started then kind of meeting people who had a lot of knowledge about what was happening in the background and what the dark side of fast fashion is. So then I started kind of reading up, watching a few documentaries. And I mean, honestly, anyone who runs a thrift store will tell you that if we have endured for 5 years, it's honestly just for all the passion that we have.
Right.
Because it's a hard business to make money.
Yeah.
So you really do need people who really feel for it and are willing to, do the hard work.
That's right.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So I think Alfie and I both are very passionate about it, is why we're doing it now.
All right. So, Alfiya, people often love buying brand new things. How do you convince them that choosing second hand can be just as good or even better?
So our approach has always been to make shopping secondhand a very accessible and enjoyable process for our consumers. So, for example, at our store, not only can you shop secondhand, but you can also swap and sell your closet, and you can also rent the pieces. This gives consumers lots of option to sort of be sustainable in their fashion choices. A lot of people prefer to swap their clothes, which means they can regularly like upgrade their wardrobe. And also a lot of effort is put into the curation of our collection. We're not restricted to just clothing. You can find books, home decor, vintage like typewriters, and lots of things at our store. So
a lot of effort and curation, making sure we have some amazing options for people, making sure the pricing is done in a way that's appealing for people that already shop secondhand, but also to convert people that have never tried it. We try to keep the collection very fun.
Right.
Apart from that, a lot of our workshops and events are centered around sustainability. For example, we have our own customers set up mini thrift stores at our store at our monthly garage sales. So this creates a sense of like sharing each other's pre-loved items, and it's a very happy and positive community building exercise. We also have upcycling events where we have some amazing local tailors that we set up at the store. And people can either shop secondhand items from our store, or they can get their own goods and you can upcycle it into any reference that you get. So say like a upcycled tote bag, or like, denim upcycled jeans and stuff like that. And of course, we have a lot of celebrity campaigns that we do. We have pre-love items from celebrities, like say we've done Veer Das, Monica Dogra, Anusha Dandekar, and this sort of encourages people who are usually hesitant to shop secondhand. It's like a gateway to shopping secondhand for them.
And over the years, have you seen people actually opening up more to these ideas?
Yes, definitely. Like in the beginning, it was a challenge to get people to sort of understand even the concept and feel comfortable shopping secondhand. But over the past couple of years, there's been a massive change and shift in the way that people perceive secondhand fashion and just secondhand shopping in general. So they accept it a lot more. There's a lot of education around it, and of course, a lot of options. There's lots of options to thrift as well.
Right.
So yeah, the people are really accepting of it now.
That's fantastic. Fantastic to know. Sana, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a business in the sharing economy? How can they help the planet and be successful at the same time?
Just to start, firstly, I think I would like to say that, especially with fashion, it's a cutthroat business, and it's really hard, to be able to compete in the fashion space. And the only way to go forward for us as small businesses and businesses that are kind of alternative to, regular conventional shopping experiences, I think collaboration is the key, and community engagement. Those are the two things I think that have helped us really, make our own space in the industry and still manage to be profitable and survive.
Right.
So I think it's very important, especially when you're doing, something to help the planet as well as be profitable at the same time.
Right.
It's always helped us to collaborate with like-minded organizations. Even in Goa, we have collaborated with a fellow thrift shop so that, we can come together and, be able to get all of our communities involved. And definitely, I think, as Alfiya was saying, all of our community engagement events, these are the things that, help us kind of endure, because we do not have, or any new business that is going to, start a business that is based on shared economy. You don't have that one star product, that you can capitalize on and sell. So it's very important that you focus on these two aspects.
Right.
That being said, there are lots of really, amazing businesses that are doing this now. There are people making bags out of upcycled, discarded plastic. Someone's doing like bags with discarded posters and umbrellas and things like that. So there's lots of fun things happening in the shared economy space in India right now.
Wow. So this is basically what I'm hearing is that collaboration is the key. And if we have the common goal and passion towards sustainability, I think we all will meet somewhere and we can actually make it very big, because I'm sure the competition in this age, when the fast fashion trend is also picking up, to go the sustainable way and to convince people to go for, thrifting wardrobes and swapping wardrobes, I'm sure is a big challenge. And kudos to both of you that you've been doing it so passionately. Alfiya, For our listeners who aren't starting a business, an individual who is listening to you, what are some simple ways that can make a difference by embracing the sharing economy in their daily lives? How do we get over this, desire to have something new, unique all the time?
Yeah, I would say trying to have that conversation even with your friends, like just within your friends, swapping clothes or having, say, a swap party where you guys exchange some things that you're not using. To also support local sustainable brands that are being very ethical in their practices. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Or shopping secondhand, supporting thrift stores. Choosing to, really invest in your wardrobe as well. I think that's also super important because we're so used to just the throwaway culture of, okay, I bought it for really cheap. So people
Right.
don't think twice before discarding items. So also just making sure that you buy things with the idea that you want to use it for a couple of years. You have to take care of your things so that, it doesn't end up in a landfill and just there's no unnecessary consumption. So yeah, in terms of fashion habits and choices, I think this is the small things we can do. And just in our daily life, like very simple changes, like even, carpooling or using public transport as much as you can, walking,
Right.
using a cycle for short distances, trying to be very sustainable at home by switching to like reusables like kitchen towels or just little things at home can make a huge difference.
Fabulous. And this has been such an inspiring talk. Very, very inspiring conversation, Sana and Alfiya. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey. I think everyone who's listening to the podcast has gotten a lot of valuable insight into how the sharing economy can help us live more sustainably. And if you want to learn more about Bombay Closet Cleanse, make sure to check them out online. Thank you so much, Sana. Thank you so much, Alfiya, for joining us today. That was an awesome conversation with Sana, Alfiya, and Shekar. And now we know every action we take matters in shaping a more sustainable future. From curating conscious secondhand wardrobes to supporting the informal waste sector and participating in the circular economy, we all have the power to make a meaningful difference. So let's make better choices, reduce, reuse, and rethink our consumption habits. Support sustainable brands, advocate for ethical practices, and above all, remember that every small step counts. Join us in this journey toward a more conscious, eco-friendly world. Until next time, keep the conversation going and keep it cool. Signing off from another episode is your host Sayema, and I'm leaving you with loads of ideas and things that we can do today. I promise to be back with many more climate connections, business ideas, and takeaways to cool it down.
Cool it down. Let's make it our business.